Tony Britt Spotter Charts serves sports media exclusively with customized cheat sheets for both prep and game time. Serving over 350 clients at all major networks, 23 NFL teams, and 68 college football programs, including Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. Variable pricing ensures that small schools receive the same VIP service as ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and the NFL Network. Oh. Well, welcome to Voices in the Stands. I am Matthew Nickel, the voice of Augustana football and baseball here in the CCIW conference, but also part of the Voices in the Stands family. And joining me today is often, I'll call you the wizard behind the curtain at kind of all major conference events. So our Associate Executive Director for the conference, Bryan Moore. So Bryan, thanks so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk, a little bit about the genesis of the conference's move to Hudl. So, a big topic, really not only today, but leading into the season is, surrounded Division III sports broadcasting. You're talking about accessibility, viewership, and kind of the paywall decision that some conferences are going behind. Now, in talking with Mo, you really champion the conference's move to HudlTV, which is great to see. Can you, maybe give us a little or walk us through how that idea first got started?
Yeah, we knew, obviously you take a look around and you see these conference networks popping up all around Division III for the last couple of years. We knew we wanted to do one, and we knew that we would have options on how we would want to do it. And it was pretty apparent, not only to the conference office, but speaking with the administrators on our campuses, from athletics communication staffs to athletics directors, all the way up to the presidential level, there really wasn't any appetite for pay-per-view. We kind of started with the athletics communication staffs a little over a year ago. I think it was our pre-year meeting in August of 24, and the immediate response was, we don't want to go down the pay-per-view route. So we knew, some of our peer conferences in the Midwest had gone with Hudl. So we made some phone calls to some other league offices to just kind of see how their process went. And it became clear to us that Hudl would probably be the way to go. All of our core members, all 9, have good partnerships with Hudl already. So it was just kind of a natural fit, and they were obviously thrilled to work with us. And it was a long process to make sure we got everything lined up the way that we wanted it to look, and a lot of education from top to bottom. But, it was really our only want from the get-go is to go with what we have now.
Now, when you first brought that idea to the table, in a year ago, you were starting to get kind of initial buy-in from each school. When you approached them, was there already a sense of they had kind of a foot in the door, or did you really have to kind of formally form a plan and present it to the core schools? Like, kind of where were they at just in their thought journey?
We saw what the WIAC had done. We saw what the Minnesota conferences had done. Both Minnesota conferences had set up with Hudl, and we really went to Hudl and said, this is what we want. We obviously don't want it to look identical. We want our own branding, our own color scheme, all those things, but this is what we want. So when we went to our athletics communication staffs, that's kind of was the model that we used is, we know that you visit these networks frequently when we're playing non-conference opponents. This is what we're trying to emulate. This is what we're trying to mimic. Again, obviously it will not look exactly the same, but this is the model we're going to follow. We also have kind of left a lot of freedom on CCIW campuses to still do things the way that they have always done. We've not really implemented a lot of branding standards for year one.
Hmm.
I do think in long term, we'd like to get to that point where maybe we have a more consistent score bug. Maybe everybody has a minimum number of cameras that they use for a sport. Maybe everybody has replay that they can queue up. We're not there yet, but
Hmm.
getting everything in one central location is step one. And I think it was easy for those athletics communication staffs to buy in because it was going to be a gradual buildup. And we basically said, keep doing what you're doing. Just make sure you send it to our network, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you were talking to the schools, you were talking just a little bit about like the school's alignment or even the conference's alignment around like accessibility, fan engagement. Um, how did like the conference's goals in Huddle kind of line up to that?
Huddle, I can't say enough good things about Huddle. Just their ability, they built the whole thing for us. Obviously we're not, you know, I'm not a tech expert by any means. So they've been a good partner, and, they obviously, they want us to be a part of their ecosystem. And again, because of the 9 CCIW core members partnership with Huddle, it was a natural fit from the get-go. We didn't have to really go to our membership and say, you've got to invest X amount of dollars to make this work. Huddle and the CCIW, long before the CCIW network, have been great partners. And I do think that there's a level of trust, between the two entities. It's obviously a huge tool for our coaches in terms of, you have that focus camera that automatically captures practices, automatically cuts game film. So I think it was a natural fit from the get go. Again, we didn't really talk to anybody else, and I think from an administrative perspective, our ads already know what Huddle is. They
Hmm.
know, what Huddle's capable of in terms of being a resource for our institutions. And when we were able to say to these people, what you see from these other leagues is what we'll be doing. It was never really a painful process. Obviously, we had to plan. We had to make sure that the paperwork was done, and we knew what we were signing on to. But we've not heard anything negative, and I don't think any of the other Division III conferences can say the same. I know that some of the structures and formats may be changing moving forward, but when I talked to BJ at the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference about a year ago, he just said, "This is great."
Hmm.
It's taken us some time to get it started, but there's no complaints. Everybody really likes it. It's easy, and it's I don't want to jinx the CCIW or anybody else, but it really has been nice to get it off the ground, and like I said, to have all of our events in one place, and hopefully it makes it easier, for our fans, for our alums, for our parents to find what they're looking for.
Well, and the one thing I continue to reiterate with Augustana parents, especially for the football season, is don't forget the Huddle Fan app, for smart TVs, and the accessibility for that. Because I think the one question a lot of parents had was the CCI W network.com, just the URL feed through a browser. I was like, no, 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 download the Huddle Fan app, and you can get it on pretty much any smart TV, and you can broadcast and share the games through that. So it gives you that same, kind of quick accessibility and the mobile accessibility. Um, so when you talk about just some of the capabilities that Huddle already brings to the table, I mean, it sounds like they had some really good core structure, already built within the tool and their offering of a platform that can really kind of rival like a YouTube, right? That's kind of free download, readily accessible. So I think that's just been a huge win. And I will tell you what, it is super nice, especially when Augie's on an away game and I can click around and stay within the tool and see what not only what Augie is playing, but then pull up another browser and and watch another game, as well. So I think that's been a nice win. Have you found, or have you heard, much feedback around using the Huddle Fan app in addition to it, or?
Not a lot. I don't think. I mean, the world that we live in. I think that we hear more bad than good. Not just in college athletics, but people, especially in this digital age. It's not difficult to find bad news. We like I said, we've really not heard any bad news. I've not heard a whole lot of differentiation between the app or the web browser version. But the other thing I will say, especially for Division III, I mean, live streaming has come a long way.
Mhm.
This is my 17th year in Division III. Whether it be at a conference office or on campus, and I mean, when I started, it was not uncommon for your game to just not be available. Whether it be technology challenges or where you were playing, and um, yeah, it's been awesome for us, and the app is just another piece of that puzzle. But to answer your question, I've not really heard specific feedback on app versus desktop. CCIWnetwork.com.
Now, did you, when you were exploring solutions, did you benchmark Huddle, against, other platforms? I mean, the big one, right, that continues to come up is Flow, and I know they approached some different colleges and specifically around even wrestling, but how did you kind of benchmark that and compare, Huddle versus maybe other platforms that, or maybe at least on the initial talking block?
Matthew, I will say that again, the unified stance from our
Mhm.
campuses about making these live streams available for free to our
Mhm.
viewers. I mean, there was never any point where we wavered, and I think that I mean, not that we would have never entertained Flow or any other pay per view aspect. Um, it was just never really an in depth discussion. Those first preliminary meetings was, we don't want pay per view. How can we do this without doing pay per view? And all signs pointed to Huddle. Again, those existing relationships kind of made it a natural transition into those discussions. But me personally, I never had a conversation with a pay per view entity. I don't know if
Mhm.
Mo did. I don't know if some of our communications people did on campus, but um, it was. I don't want to say it was easy for us, but it
Mhm.
certainly was a path of very little resistance to get to that point.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. And I was thinking a little bit about just like the business side of it. Um, you hear about, the flow, monetary kickback and some revenue sharing and some of that stuff. And then I think about, the conference and all the schools really commitment to Huddle TV and the question that I continue to think about is like the sustainability of it and is there much you can share around the business side of it, or is it really just a cost of doing business is kind of what the conference and what the schools look at. Can you kind of share some of that side of the deal with Huddle?
Yeah, nobody really. I mean, I'm sure that the pay per view contracts, it remains a little bit of a mystery, I think, on what these kickbacks are and what these contracts look like. Again, we never had a conversation with Flo or anybody else on each school is going to get X, Y, and Z. I do think that there is a genuine reality of establishing goodwill with
Mhm.
your campus communities. Division III, we all know what it is. It is the purest form of college athletics, and for us, coming to our parents, coming to our dedicated alumni and saying, you're gonna have to pay to watch this weekend. It's just not a message that we want to send. Again,
Mhm.
I'm grateful that we're unified on that front. What it looks like in the future, I'm not sure. Obviously, Huddle's been an amazing partner, and Huddle has done everything that we've asked them to do. And a couple years down the road, I don't know what it looks like for Huddle. They obviously have found a nice little home with some of these Division III conferences in the region. But this is the new age of Division III uh, streaming on a
Mhm.
conference platform. Um, I don't see any change of heart from the CCIW anytime soon when it comes to our philosophy on making our content available. Um, but one thing that's certain is that things change all the time. But for us right now, we love where we're at. It's month 2 of year 1, and things are going great. So we're just kind of enjoying the spot we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, the experience has been awesome. And I think too, Huddle does a really nice job of providing a stable platform. So I haven't noticed or experienced. Again, I'm going to knock on wood here as well. As we've regardless of if I was looking at the WIAC, I was looking at the ARC, the Minnesota Conference or ours. I don't seem to ever run into any type of platform issue. So the stability, just from a viewership has been absolutely awesome. And I was thinking just a little bit about like for the core schools for the CCIW. This is obviously a great step in the direction, for the conference and bringing not just football or baseball, but soccer and basketball and lacrosse and all of these other sports that are, across the conference. Did you get a sense of, um, I don't know, like renewed, energy around trying to bring a strong broadcast product to the table? What kind of sense did you get from the schools, like individually, or did that kind of just vary and waver based on, their own, I guess, interests?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have something new, it's exciting. You want to do it well. I can't say enough nice things about our communication staffs on campus. This thing has the CCIW's name on it. It's the CCIW network, but a lot of the legwork came from campus, and the directors and the assistant directors and the graduate assistants and the interns. They're obviously doing the productions on campus and carrying the equipment out to the facilities and the press boxes. So this really, they're not changing a whole lot of what they have always done. I do think with this new endeavor, there is an appetite for bigger and better.
Mhm.
Nine core institutions. Obviously, not everybody does their broadcast the same way, but yeah, I think, like I said, when something's new, you want it to go well. And it's funny, our first broadcast, I guess you could say, on the network was Friday, August 29th, and it was in the afternoon. I think it was a soccer game, and there was a little bit of I don't know if anxiety is the right word, but you want it to go well, and you
Yeah.
know that people are paying attention. And I went to Denver with my family for Labor Day weekend on vacation, and it was a coincidence, that I was on an airplane when the network launched for the first time. So not only was I not in Decatur for the actual production of the stream, but I did not have access to the internet. So when I landed, I pulled it up, and obviously it was working, and I didn't have an inbox full of angry emails. So from the get go, it has been great, and it's because of, I think, that renewed, um, you know, that renewed pursuit of wanting to do it well. And it's really the SIDs on our campuses. They've been fantastic. They've always done a good job with their live streams. It's always just been in different places. So
Mhm.
again, we hope to continue building that brand, and I know that our campuses will continue to invest in good live streams, and we anticipate for everything to just keep getting bigger and better as time goes on.
Now, with the platform, are views, unique viewership, the metrics and the analytics, is that something that you'll start to benchmark this year in terms of like engagement, with the fan base? Or are you benchmarking, current state today versus maybe, what colleges have done in the past? Is that kind of a part of kind of year one and how you're looking at the success of it?
Sure. We have Huddle's great in terms of providing those analytics. The data is still a little raw yet in just a couple of weeks, so we're trying not to get too high or too low on what we see early on. Obviously, as we get into winter sports, basketball will obviously be a big one for us, but um, I do think it might be difficult to compare this data to previous years just because of the way that things were structured. But we have access to the data. We certainly will be able to sit down as a conference staff and as with the other communication staffs on campuses to figure out what's going well, what's maybe not going as well, and how can we figure out to maybe boost those numbers. But no, it's definitely available to us, and it'll be a part of our conversation as we figure out how to evolve and improve the network.
Now, lastly, I mean, is there something that fans or alumni, should be doing or contributing to ensure, sustainability around like, donations to schools, viewership, some of those things? What can we be doing, as fans and alumni?
Well, fans and alumni can definitely keep watching. Again, the feedback for us, there's been an absence of negative feedback. I do think if there's areas to improve, let us know. Again, the conference itself isn't producing the streams. So
Hmm.
I do think that my relationship with communication staffs on campuses is good. We communicate frequently. So, if there are areas where, hey, maybe if we did this way, it could be a little bit better. My communication with those campus staffs is ongoing, but I'm not sure. I know one thing I've learned now in year 4 of working in the conference office. Parents and alums are fans of institutions. They're not necessarily fans of a conference. I know that they're supportive of the CCIW. They want to see the CCIW do well, but I'm sure that those conversations are far more frequent on campus as opposed to with us at the network. So I'm all ears. Obviously, if something is not working the way it should, we want to get it fixed as soon as possible. But my ask is to keep watching and let us know, if there's areas where we can be better. I like to try to take a look around at what other places do, to see, not necessarily to steal their ideas, but to maybe take their ideas and bring it to what we do. I mean, really, that's how the network came to be. Is we saw that it was happening in Division 3, and I think the obvious question is why don't we have one of these? Well, now we
Yep.
do. So, we're just always looking to be better, and I think that feedback can be helpful.
You said something a few minutes ago. It sparked a question. Who retains the broadcast rights? Is it Huddle TV? Is it the conference, or is it still kind of owned with the school? Like, where does that sit?
The campuses still have quite a bit of autonomy to reserve those rights. Huddle, again, they've been great. Like the actual paperwork process of the network was a very simple process. So, again, we're still really kind of giving the campuses the ability to do what they want, and some schools are still streaming elsewhere. I think that there's a couple of campuses that stream to YouTube. As part of this agreement, they can still stream to their YouTube channels. Obviously, we want it to be on the network as well. So, we want this to be as seamless a transition as possible. And, that may change moving forward. We don't really plan on making sweeping changes, but we want it
Mhm.
to be easy for the viewers. We want it to be easy for our campuses. So we've really kind of left that open ended at this point.
Well, to wrap things up, is there anything else, Brian, that you want to, share that we didn't otherwise, talk about?
I don't think so. Again, we want people to use the network. We want people to have it be a part of their routine. For me, being at the conference office when it's a Wednesday night and we have a full slate of soccer or a full slate of volleyball, and obviously Saturdays are always busy from top to bottom with football and those sports, and we want people to use it. It's been great for us, and obviously as we head into championship season next week, it's going to be hopefully a one-stop shop for everyone wanting to see our postseason tournaments. Um, I'm eager to be able to tell people you can check out our CCIW championships on the CCIW network instead of having to go to 4 different places or 8 different places. So, no, just keep tuning in and let us know where we can be better. And I'm very excited to see what year 2 looks like.
Hmm.
Getting our feet under us and making sure that it works and everybody's rowing in the same direction. We only hope for things to, like I said, bigger and better moving forward, and I'm excited about it for sure.
Well, I will say, as the caller of our football games for Augustina, I do love now that I can have a pretty firm, you are watching the Vikings football on the CCIW network. So that's kind of how I, go into a break or anything like that. And it's probably the most succinct statement I have been able to ever say in all my time of doing the broadcasting. So
Yeah,
personally,
it's
it's like
pretty
little
it's
small
pretty
wins.
cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, and that's just one. Aside from it working and helping our viewers, it's pretty cool. It does sound bigger and better, and yeah, I'm thrilled to hear that.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, thank you again for your time today, and certainly look forward to seeing you. I don't know, many upcoming conference tournament, events. So appreciate your time
Yeah,
today.
it's travel season, so we'll be out and about these next few weekends. We're looking forward to it, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Matthew, to just shine a light on what our campuses are doing, and it's been great so far.
Well, don't forget to check out, for those watching this, the CCIW network at cciwnetwork.com. And you can also, follow and favorite all of our schools through the Huddle fan app as well. So again, Brian, thank you again.
Thank you.